Well, for Woodstock, I think I could be wrong, but somebody can cross-reference me this, but I'm pretty sure that he worked in the freakout tent. At Woodstock, the hog farm was commissioned to come and run the free kitchen and the medical tent. And the pranksters, we were commissioned to come run the free stage. So the guys that put on Michael Lang that put on the event got a charter plane and flew the hog farmers back there. So they were already there. We took 4 buses overland. We came back in the pioneer fashion. So they had to get there early to help set up. They did a lot of the logistics. And so by the time we got there, the free kitchen was already built and they were starting to provide food for the other people that were setting up because we were a few days early too. And we had to build our stage for the free stage. And then in the little meadow over from us, from where the free stage was the medical tent, which they started calling the freak out tent. Maybe there were two. Maybe there was the freak out tent and the actual medical tent. So I did a lot of cooking for the pranksters for the free stage and took care of the kids. And but we went by the freak out tent a lot, and I know they ran 24 hours a day, and it was very important. It was a very important addition to the concert. They got a lot of business. So when Paul first moved to La Honda and he was living in the Treehouse and we were doing the happenings, one of the things that Kesey had invented was called the Power Trip, and it was a game. It evolved over time. It had different rules, and but one of the evolutions of it was you got the power. Your name was drawn out of a hat. You had the power, and you had 3 minutes, and you could do anything. You were God for 3 minutes. You had total control over everybody and everything. And so there were various events through that. But what that led to was when Paul moved in, and we also were throwing the I Ching as part of a kind of a ritualistic daily event. And maybe from taking speed and DMT, Paul got the idea that it was just taking too long to do all these things and all these happenings and events or everything. Just taking too long. So he invented a fling-a-ching. Because the I Ching, it could take a long time, especially if every single person threw a stick. It could take hours. So he invented, because he was really good with numbers, and that's what the I Ching is based on, numbers, invented a little, it had 6 wooden pegs in it on a frame, and they were on a wire so that you could pull your hand down really fast and fling it. That's what it's called, fling-a-ching. And all the hexagrams would rotate, and then when they stopped, that would be the reading that you would get. So each peg had 4 sides to it, I believe, and the hexagrams are 4, and it's based on 64. Anyway, Paul was the genius that came up with it, and so it became very popular. Everybody wanted to use the fling-a-ching. I don't know where the physical one is, probably long gone, and he built it while he was living in the treehouse. So that's one of the things he was doing up in the treehouse, was making this fling-a-ching. So another thing that we did while Paul was living in the tree is before we went to Vietnam Day, which was in the fall of 1965. I think we met this person a new friend that in the spring that worked for a billboard company, or used to work for a billboard. Anyway, this guy had access to lots and lots of old billboards, all rolled up into a big, anyway, like wallpaper. So somebody got the idea, it might have been either Roy or Paul or the two of them together, to collage the bus with these billboards. So we got rolls and rolls of these old billboards, and we ripped them apart and we glued them on the bus. And part of the prankster thing was, well, how do you preserve it? How do you make sure that it's not going to peel off because it's, put it on metal? And everybody laughed because prankster credo was nothing lasts. So we just did the artwork, and whatever happened, happened. So after that, a month or two after that, we got the call to go to Berkeley. So we painted the bus with a tempera, painted it red. So we covered all the billboards. The bus was always changing. Yeah, I don't know where he found some gauze, or it might have been cheesecloth that looked like gauze, but anyway, he wrapped his whole body at the second acid test in San Jose, and I think he was inspired by because the dead were calling themselves the Grateful Dead now. So in Paul's mind, the way Paul works and the way his mind functions is, if I'm coming to a Dead concert, I'm coming as a mummy. So and his whole head, so there was just little slits here and a little slit in his mouth. And he stumbled around all night like that. That acid test was at Big Nig's house in San Jose. It was just a residential house, very small house. I think it was one bedroom, very tiny. 400 people showed up, and so I think we were lucky to get 100 in the house, and then there's 300 out on the yard and the street, and the cops came, and et cetera, et cetera. It was a really crazy night. One of the things that happened was when the Dead were playing and the Pranksters were playing, we were both set up in the living room, and that's all the room there was in the living room was just our band equipment. And the house was not wired for amps and guitars, and so we kept the breakers of the house, electrical breakers, kept popping off and off and on. So we'd play a little bit, and then the breakers would go, and everything would go silent. And then this guy who lived there had to run around and try to put it back on. He put it on, then we'd go, it would pop again. The whole night was really crazy. And Paul added to the chaos with his mummy costume. He also came as a mummy to the Longshoremen's, the field trip, the big field trip. San Francisco in January 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 1966, 10,000 people. So by then everybody was in costume. So he came with duct tape this time, wrapped in duct tape. I was there when Laura and Paul got married. I was there when he first met. I first met Laura too. Was in La Honda, and she came up. She was still in high school, and she came up to La Honda to see Paul, visit him in the Treehouse. And that's the first time I met Laura. And then let's see, it was about two years later, more than that, 3 years later, they got married in 1968 in Tasuki Meadows outside Santa Fe, New Mexico. And Ken Babbs was the best man, and Paul had on his jester clown kind of jumpsuit, but he wore ice skates in the heat of the summer. And so part of Babs' job as his best man was to hold him upright because he had a hard time. His ankles kept wobbling in the ice skates. So I remember that as one of his crazier accessories, costume accessories. And of course his famous button coat, full of buttons. He was the first person I ever saw that collected the buttons and wore them, all of them, front and back, everywhere. It's fantastic. I wish somebody had kept that, because that would have been a great thing to put in the exhibit. Summer of Love exhibit.